What's good with you? Dogysamich here. You see the Smash GG, you know what time it is. Time to do another tournament wrap up. But you're probably looking at this right now and like, yo, who are these people and what's going on? Yeah, if you're from like the current era of the Georgia FGC, you probably don't know the names and the legacy of Augusta. But Coach, a few of the usual suspects and myself decided to forego the usual monthly and take a trip over to Augusta and see what was happening. Now, this wrap up is going to be pretty different because instead of doing the usual song and dance where I just walk you through the brackets, talk about some matches I remember, look at 90% of the brackets like, I didn't watch that. We're gonna go a different path, all right? We're gonna go a different path. We are actually going to start with the pictures, and this is primarily going to be the pictures. You'll get a pretty good idea of why as we go through this. So, as you see, this went down at the R&R Bar and Grill. It's a pretty nice place, tucked off by itself on a highway in Augusta. And I wish I would have took a few more pictures to show you like how by itself it really is. But it was a pretty good place to hold a tournament, right? You can also slide over here and get yourself like 75-cent bag of ice. It was next to a wood shop as well, something to that effect. Anyways, let's take a walk inside. Go see what was happening with the Augusta guard break squad, and they were pretty deep. The inside of this bar was pretty nice. Give you a couple of shots. That's like a wider shot of the stage and everything. Now that I think about it, I don't have an actual picture of the bar. I took it out because Chewy Jr. was over here, if you will. Yeah, here's some shots of the setups. They had 2 rows of setups. I want to say they had about 12 or so. 12 or so setups for a 50 entrant tournament. They had 3 different games, which you might have caught a glimpse of on this page right here. They had Tekken, they had Street Fighter, they had Battle for the Grid. I paused for a second because I was trying to think about where I wanted to take you. Because one of the big caveats to this, oh, here it is right here, cool, was they had a $200 pop bonus for all 3 of the games, right? For all intents and purposes, this wound up being a pretty notable Street Fighter tournament. Like, Tekken was pretty good as well, don't get me wrong. But these were the 2 big workhorses of the tournament, Street Fighter and Tekken. That's not to say Power Rangers didn't happen, but it was an 8-man tournament that they had to draft some people for. But let's get back to the pictures. Now, I was saying that Augusta was pretty deep. And some of you are probably thinking that they're so deep, why haven't we heard about them in like years? And it's been since the first season of Street Fighter V. Like, that was literally the timing. Well, I did sit down and talk to Drew. I should have had the picture of Drew here first. I did sit down and talk to Drew, and he said that they've kind of been meeting off and on over the years, but ultimately what happened is, one of the real common things in gaming in general, not even just fighting games, not even competitive gaming, just life, People grow up, people get responsibilities. So, as loosely as they've been keeping in touch with each other and sporadically they've been meeting, they haven't really been able to have a chance to like get together, colonize, unionize, whatever you want to say, and just like rebuild their group and community. But apparently, this guy right here, known as Andrew, I don't know how I forget his tag already. I didn't really get it. But from what I've been told, he has recently come around and he has been like the big front runner of pulling everything together. He's like, I guess, the TO of guard break. Like, I didn't ask that directly, but that was the impression that I got from everybody. Like, everybody I talked to said he was the driving force for putting all this together. And just for a blast of the past, he's standing next to Casey. When heavyweight introduced me to Casey, quote unquote introduced. Casey looked at me and was like, "Yeah, I remember you. You don't remember me, probably because I'm not a memorable person." Which I'll put this on record. I honestly don't. I forget a lot of people. I'm a terrible person, but Casey was a guy that I actually met when I played Melee, and he said I probably don't remember him because he graduated from Columbus in 2008. Yeah, that's the kind of history, that's the kind of timelines we got going on over in Augusta. Yes. Go back many, many years with some people. And like I showed you, Heavyweight was there. If you're one of the old Street Fighter Vanguard, it's one of the names you're fairly familiar with. Another one of the big names behind the scenes, pun slightly intended, but one of the people who was really adamant to getting everything back together. Can't forget about Lily Coco. Just called him Sora. Everybody just called him Sora. Let's be real. He was holding it down there as well. I know some people watching this is like, yo, they're still out there. Yeah, they still out there. They still out there. This man right here, Kyoki MSG, was doing a lot of the emceeing and a lot of the bracket running. I say a lot of the emceeing while Casey's over here holding the mic, but you get the idea. I don't remember what my next picture is. Oh, here it is. The man, the myth, the legend himself, Drew Seth. Like I said, I talked to him a good bit. I didn't see him really running anything, but he seemed like he was still like the Augusta hero, if you will. Like, every time he was playing, there was at the least a small crowd watching and cheering for him. It was really cool to see. I mean, that's a really simple thing for me to say, but it was one of those things that was really interesting to think about, where for the past, I'll say 5 or 6 years, the Georgia community has gotten to the point of where you have the usual suspects. You have like your Pain Bots and your Jesuses and your Terrences, Poke Chops, your Fames, Scrots and whatnot, Jazz Raps. People you see at effectively everything, because everything centers around Atlanta, right? And then you wonder, like, where all these old names went. Like, literally everybody I've mentioned so far. Heavyweight, Drew, Kyoki, Sora. There's a few more that I haven't said yet. And then just to see that not only do they still exist, not only are they still playing the games at varying degrees. I say varying degrees because even though Street Fighter was like the big event, quote unquote, they weren't really super keen on Street Fighter 5. It's the same thing that you've been hearing over time. Augusta's effectively like coming back, knocking the rust off, and getting themselves in shape, waiting for whatever the next Capcom game is. And I say that specifically as a note to point out to really to anybody who's listening to this, I guess, that it's they specifically said the next Capcom game. That's just something to really keep in mind. But the point I'm ultimately making at this, because I'm ranting too much, is that it was a different group of people that are really still in the same community, but the reason why you don't really hear about them at all, especially if you're new, is because they're really on an island. for all intents and purposes, for where most of the action happens in the state, they're on a 2 hour island. But there's so many people over there, and I guess there's enough people that are willing to go over there, that when they come back from nowhere, they can effectively make their own scene. They can effectively make a pretty solid event. So, there's people out there. Just got to go out and find them and pay attention to when they say something. I don't know, that's soapboxing. Let's keep going. Yes, I still said there are some people that I haven't mentioned yet, some old names. I mean, yeah, you know Jesus. Everybody knows Jesus. But this man right here, if you playing Street Fighter 5 and you remember Season 1, Season 2, when the Red Bull Battlegrounds, the Proving Grounds, and all that started, there was me doing commentary, and then there was the Giga Coos. Yeah, Coos showed up. Oh, man. It's a man that I haven't talked to in quite some years. It was so nice to see him. And I didn't even really get to talk to him too much because he spent a majority of the time commentating Street Fighter 5. Like, I think I did 2 games, which was perfectly fine. Because I always try to let other people get their time to shine. And then walking into a scenario like this, it's like, again, pretty tight-knit community, trying to get everything structured. I don't want to be the kind of guy that comes in and is like, oh, you know, since I'm like one of the main guys in the state, I got to do it. It's like, nah, it's not like that at all. So, Goose was over there holding it down for a good bit. I need to go back and check the VOD, because if that man did not say Stun City one time the entire day, I'm going to actually be kind of upset. And for what I was saying, that I was letting anybody get their time to shine, yeah, this is kind of funny. Because they actually started off with Street Fighter 5, and I was sitting at a table with Coach, Do You Want More, Terrence, Painbot, FGC Jesus. I think Sir Retro was either sitting at the table or at the table behind us with OH Hutch. And when they announced that they're getting ready to run the bracket, Jesus looks over at Painbot. He's like, all right, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do commentary. And you're going to come do commentary with me. And we're going to have a grand old time. And Painbot's like, why in the world do you want me to come do commentary on Street Fighter 5? And I just sat there, my hand over my mouth, laughing hysterically. Because I knew where this was going to go. If you know these two, you know exactly where this is going to go. But the fact that there was so much enthusiasm behind it, I was like, I just want to see this happen. So that was a majority of the commentary that went on. That was one of the highlights that was going on. It's just funny to think about what else we had going on. Well, because they were doing that, and again, like, I did very little commentary. I just spent a lot of time chilling. I can't even say I really watched that many matches. It was more so just like catching up with people, talking, having a good time, seeing what's happening and everything. So, stood around a good bit and watched as, everybody filed in and out of their stations, getting their games on, their Street Fighters and their Tekkens. Power Rangers didn't start until much later. It was kind of a weird entity, because again, like I pointed out earlier, they only had an 8-man bracket. Really, they only had 6, and they had to ask for 2 more people to sign up. But it was cited that Augusta had a scene for Power Rangers. I won't try to say a big, I won't try to say notable, I'll say a scene. And apparently it was very obvious by the last 2 people, whoever was in grand finals. I didn't stay for that. That was far too late. But everything happened. That's where I need to go. I'm ranty again. Try not to rant too much. People went, they played games. I was chilling. Hey, you're welcome, Hutch. It's chilling, vibing, as the kids say. This was during Tekken Top 3. I didn't realize that they had a spotlight specifically on the commentators. That's actually kind of cool. They didn't have in-house commentary, but with the way everything was going when they dimmed the lights for Top 3 for Tekken, Top 6 for Street Fighter, yeah, I'm blowing some smoke and mirrors. They had Top 8 on stream. They did Top 6. But with the way everything was, you didn't need in-house commentary. And this is one of the cool things that I pointed out that just doesn't happen anymore. Like it might happen at 404, I guess, but it doesn't happen at GB. It doesn't happen at Data or Plus 2. And it was the fact that there were people that were genuinely interested in the matches. There were people who were genuinely invested in watching how everything was going to pan out. And there were people who were just excited to watch good games. And I say that to the effect of where I was talking to Terrence at one point over the side. And there was some match going on. I think it was a Street Fighter match, but somebody from Augusta was playing. And at least 7 times, and it was literally about 7 times, during that conversation, Terrence had to stop. And he looked over his shoulder because somebody was yelling. Like, somebody or some people were yelling. And they were, like, extremely loud. I dare say loud and obnoxious, but they were extremely loud. And I just kind of stopped and laughed because I was like, this is the kind of thing I don't have anymore. This is the kind of thing I haven't seen in years. Where it's like, I can't have a conversation here because people are getting hype about a match. Man, Tekken 7 has Leroy. Street Fighter 5 is a trash game. No, it's about the people. It's about the people. And these people were having a good time. Glad to see that there was some competitive fighting games going on in their area. For everything that I was just spiraling on, I should have actually scripted this. I say this every time. Some of the other things that I don't see very often, not out in the wild, is competition to the point of where people are practicing the old ancient art of money matching. But, you said poke chop, and that's like his favorite catchphrase. Yeah, but who else really does that? It's really a thing that doesn't happen anymore. Or it's not like it's not a common occurrence, I will say. Yeah. It was pretty cool to walk over and see Do You Want More over here having money matches with Bombito. Until Terrence said his name, it didn't cross my mind who this guy was, but Bombito, he's Bombito PR. That'll probably make more sense to some people. PR Puerto Rico. I don't know how long he's been in or around Georgia, but I specifically remember him from season 2 of Red Bull in the Top Golf time. I remember talking to him, and he had just recently moved up to Georgia. Now, I want to say it was to Augusta, which is why this all makes sense now. But he said he was there for military, I want to say. Which all adds up because, as I showed you in the first picture, this R&R Bar and Grill is on Gordon Highway. Gordon Highway is down the street from Fort Gordon, right? But, again, raining. I gotta stop raining. The point I'm making is, even, like, some of the people behind the scenes, not like the front runners that you see on stream all the time, back then, for example. But some of the ones that, they make it pretty deep in the bracket, the sleepers, they're still out there. They're still lurking. They're still grinding. And he actually made it pretty far in the bracket. Let's keep going. Speaking of brackets, this wasn't a casual. This is actually a match that happened. It's a pretty interesting one to find in the second round of winners. Terrence versus Drew. I kind of had it in my mind when I saw this as I don't want to say old school versus new school. Although, even though I'm kind of beating this dead horse at this point, if you're Street Fighter V, Drew is pretty old school. This is more of like the story where you've got like the old guy, if you will, trying to see if he can hang with the young bucks, if you will. Again, I'm saying those terms very loosely, trying to see if he still got what it takes. Which, I'll be real, yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody was real about this scenario. It wasn't going to happen, but it was one of those points to where people in this scenario will look at this and they'll ask, do they want to do the grind to get back up to their old glory, or do they want to just refine themselves at the point where they are right now and just like maintain? And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to what's going to happen to it. Because again, like I said earlier, a lot of the Augusta guys were saying that they're kind of, just stewing, cooking, waiting for the next Capcom game. They don't really want to invest too hard into Street Fighter V at this point, but they still like playing games. They still like competing, which is why they were so on board to doing this. I will side note, since I'm here at this point, sorry, the long pauses are coughs, by the way, if you haven't figured that out. I'm not trying to blow your eardrums out in the recording. I will point out that Drew plays Sim. Somebody heard this and like, what do you mean? Honda's in the game. When Street Fighter V came out, Honda wasn't in the game. Hello? He was added in Season 4. And Drew played in the beginning, so if there's no Honda, he has to play somebody else. And he played Sim. He played Sim for a good bit, and he was a pretty competent Sim in the beginning. Back over there in the Waba B-Boy station and everything. But yeah, he still plays Sim. Apparently he has to play Honda. This is another testament to how tight-knit the Augusta community is at this point. Because there was a point on stream where Drew was playing somebody. And it was Sim vs. Honda. And a lot of people were sitting there watching this Honda get beat. And they were like, wait a second, how is Drew losing like this? So that says that he's messed around with Honda at some point. But somebody, one of the, I guess, upper guys of the Augusta Guard Break crew, I didn't get his name, sat and thought about it for a second. And after the first game, he walks over to the stage and he asked Drew who he was playing. And Drew was like, yeah, I'm playing Sim. And it's like, oh, switch the names around. Everybody, gets the point of clarity and it all makes sense now. But, they see enough of each other that they know that anything's possible. They know that, like, sure, he's known for Honda, but, it's possible that he's playing Sim. Let me stop. Again, ranting too much. You get the point that I'm saying. You get the point. Let me brush this up real quick, because this is to the point where, we're getting late in the day. Got down to the end, because, all brackets must come to an end at some point, even if they don't get closed out. Hint, hint. And we got down to the top 6 of Street Fighter V. And this was the main thing that I watched. Again, this turns into another point of vested interest. Most of the top 6 were... Well, actually, aside from one person, aside from Dread Dragon, I knew everybody else in top 6 in some capacity. So obviously that's what I'm going to pay attention to. The first match they had up was a winner semis match, Terrence and FGC Jesus. Something that's, something that you would expect for a winners finals. Painbot kind of questioned why one of them wasn't on his side of the bracket, but I mean, he gladly took it. But this set was a pretty good set. It was a pretty close set. This is the set that I looked at, and everything Jesus has said and done over the years has made more sense. Like, I don't want to say he's never made sense before. That would be just some straight crap to say. But he's making sense to be the kind of player to where you can't really prepare or practice for him. One, because of how he operates and how he thinks, combined with the kind of character that he plays and the caliber and the level that he's at with the character. So it's the kind of thing that where it's really hard to explain in a uniformed analytical sense. And I'm not trying to say this and say oh, he's just random. But you just have to see it. And you have to see it again and again and again. And you have to start connecting the dots to how things work out, the things he's thinking about and looking for, why they shouldn't work, so on and so forth. And when you have a person and a character like that, and somebody who is refined is a word that came to my mind, but one who has who's gone to the grindstone as much as Jesus has. You see that he makes it really, really hard for people who know or people who are familiar with him but aren't up to speed with him at the moment. And it seems almost impossible for people who have no exposure to him. I'll say all this up front because Jesus played the most matches of top 6, I believe. He loses this match to Terrence. I don't remember the count of this one specifically, but it was a pretty competitive set. The next match he plays, next 2 matches he plays, the 2 people he played have very little experience against him, and they were lost. They both sat down. They were like, "What in the world do I do? Why is this man always plus? Where do I can't even play the game." And it's the kind of thing where, again, you can't really just sit down and go to training mode and study how to beat Jesus. I don't think so, at least. And so he's turned into a real entertaining entity to me for Georgia Street Fighter 5, because he's the wild card. He's a wild card. Let me keep going. This was the second winner semis match. This is Dread Dragon and Painbot. Dread Dragon, I don't know a lot about. I don't know anything about him technically, honestly. He played Cody. I've never heard of him before. And in fact, before I started doing this recording, I just clicked around Smash GG a little bit. As hard as that is, dear Lord, that's hard. I'm on the why Smash GG train. Been on there for years. Anyways, but I clicked around a little bit, and I saw that he went to Red Bull Conquest in LA. Yeah, so I don't know where this guy came from, but he made it to the top 6 on the winner side. Cody player, pretty thorough Cody player. It was it was pretty funny because the first game he was playing against Painbot's Sagat, and he walked over him, like, just marched him over to the corner, threw him in jail, threw away the key. And Painbot sat there, hand on his chin, scratching his beard, trying to figure out what in the world he can do to actually get this guy to stop hitting buttons. And it's that specific because while he was thinking, Jesus, being himself, literally yells out, "No, he's not going to stop pressing." And Dread Dragon turned around and literally said, "No, I'm not." Oh, so good. So a couple moments later, Painbot goes back to the character select screen. He pulls out a Honda. Pulls out the big man, starts hitting the jab button, taking the space, starts blowing up limbs. And with that, he's able to, get Dread Dragon to pull all his buttons back in his pocket. Is able to take game 2 and game 3 off of him. Move on to winners finals. Yeah, the semis were 2 out of 3. If you have a problem, blah, blah, blah. People run tournaments how they want to. There's many different formats, many different ways to go about it. It's another rant that I'll save when I start making rant videos. That was a pretty good game. Pretty good match. One of my favorites, actually. It's a pretty important one for Painbot and his journey through Street Fighter V. The journey that he's begrudgingly forced on himself, which is pretty funny. Losers quarters. Somewhere in losers. Dread Dragon, do you want more? Cody versus Karen. I don't remember a whole lot about this specifically. I think this was like the least invested, I think this was the least invested match that I had in the entire top 6. I do want to point out, because I've said this quite a few times, and I've noticed this from DTWU throughout the day. I said, every time I see him, or recently when I've seen him in like the past few months, which has been very sporadic because he'll show up for a bit, he'll disappear for a few months, he'll show up again, he'll disappear for a few months. I want to say the last time he was around was the Axis Monster Slayer, around that time, right? But I've always noted, or I've always felt like he's a Karen player that doesn't really like his low forward. Like, that's a button that I hear everybody complain about. And this is before whatever season we're in, right? When it was like really, 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 really good. And it seemed like he kept Karen's low forward in a glass box, in the emergency box. And he would only break it if a fire was happening. He seemed to do everything else. He was like really like crouch strong. But it seemed rare for him to use low forward. I remember watching him go entire games, and I could count how many times he pressed that button on one hand. And I didn't need all my fingers. But he's making more use of it now. But he won this game. I remember he won the game. I don't remember the score. I don't remember like the details, other than he was pressing more low forward. He was looking more like what I expected of a Karen. This is the other loser semis match. Jesus versus Bombito. And this is where I started to get the idea of actually waiting a little bit to take pictures so I can get better shots, if you will. I've kind of thought about some quote-unquote photography doing this. But yeah, Bombito, I don't remember who he played in the Proving Grounds era, but he was playing Monot, as you see. And he was a pretty notable Monot. He was a pretty solid Monot. Sad to say that wasn't enough to really stop the parade of Jesus, because again, Jesus is the kind of person where if you haven't really played against him often enough, I imagine it's just impossible. Nigh impossible. As long as he's on his P's and Q's. I don't see how people do it. So yeah, Bombito was one of the first people to sit down after the match, and he was just like, how? What happened? Second one being, do you want more? Which, this has had to have happened sometime in Georgia's history. I'm one of the most god-awful people for trying to remember who played who, the matchup history and all that. Like, I'm terrible at that. But this had to have happened at some point in time. And I wouldn't be surprised if the results were somewhat similar. DU sits down, he's like, he just had this complete look of confusion on his face, like he was playing Street Fighter V Remix or something. Mysterious Mod, there you go. You didn't know what was going on. Terrence and Coach did point out that he wasn't using a lot of Tenko, or I guess the command dash specifically. I don't remember the name of that itself, but they said Tenko. They said that basically he wasn't using a lot of the invul to try to combat the poison balls, which was kind of true. But he just wasn't ready for Jesus. So as Jesus marched on through the bracket of alternative success, he went up against that was winners finals. Sorry, surprise! I forgot I haven't done winners finals yet, because they did in the order that doesn't happen very often, or I guess it's the old order, if you will. I don't know. I've never really kept up with orders. No, this is the old order, because I remember what's going to happen now. So, this is winners finals. Terrence versus Painbot. Painbot decided that if he somehow made it to winners finals, that's where he was going to be ended, because he was going to lose to Terrence, which, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Woe is me, none of my characters beat Chun-Li, and I can't play G that well yet, what do I do? Yeah, it was one of those scenarios. So, that was a 3-0. Cool thing was, though, people were really in Painbot's corner, because we all expected Terrence to win this pretty convincingly. But after Painbot got mopped up in the first game, he thought pretty hard about switching. He was like, do I want to stay Sagat? Do I want to play Honda? Do I want to try G? And somebody in the crowd, I don't know who it was, but somebody started a Honda chant. Honda, 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 Honda. And he's like, you know what? Fine. He tried Honda. He ain't do nothing, but he tried Honda. Because he ain't do nothing. He had to go against Jesus, which is what I was trying to segue into earlier. And while Jesus was down here trudging through the racket of alternative success, he had one more body to step over before he climbed his way back up to the surface and made it to Terrence and grand finals. The Augusta native, let me get that a little more clear, trying to see if he can defend his turf, or his old stomping grounds more specifically, against the big, I don't want to say the big bad giant, the big humble giant that's just stomping through the lands, taking tournament after tournament. And try as Jesus might, he put up a really good fight. This came down to the last game of the set. I want to say the last round, if I remember. Yeah, last round. but he couldn't hold on. Lost 3-2 in the first set. And this does remind me, I said I don't remember much about the winners finals match. I am I'm recalling the fact that the winners finals came down to last game, last round, last hit, one of those scenarios. And Jesus took a long range jump over a Kikokin, if I remember correctly. One of the ones where you question if you want to anti-air it, and Terrence threw out a back roundhouse and clipped him. I don't think Jesus pressed the button, if I remember that in that scenario, but he just barely got tagged. And I remember him being pretty upset that Terrence would take that chance right there, like win or lose. But the grand final set was similar in how close it was. Like, again, I'm not going to front. I was pretty certain that Terrence would win. To the point of where if somebody asked me to put money on it, I probably would have. And people know I don't do that very often. Or ever, really. But Jesus made him work for it. And with the way that was going, if Jesus would have won, it wouldn't have really surprised me. It would have been like, whoa, how did he do this? What was going on? It was like, he was playing fairly well. It was pretty good. Pretty good. And obviously, that was your top 3 of Street Fighter V. Terrence over there just smiling as always. City Trends, Terrence. City Trends. Apparently, that's spreading like wildfire. Jesus holding down second place. Again, a really tight second place. Like, this gap is too big for how close it was. Needs to slide over a little more so he can leave this huge gap between him and third place, because Painbot got blown up. But with all that being said, that was, for all intents and purposes, the end of Augusta guard break. That was the end of my Augusta guard break, if you will, because after that I left. They still had some Power Rangers to play. I don't know how much of it they put on stream, but it was like 11:30 at that point, and I was like, yo, 3-hour drive, gotta pack it up. And yes, it was 3 hours, because I wasn't taking those back roads. Like, I saw them on the way up there, and I saw no street lights out there. So I made sure to go all the way from Augusta down I-20 to 285, 675 to 75. So it was a pretty lengthy drive back. But that was the end of my night. That wasn't the end of the night for the Augusta guard break crew, which put on a very good showing for their first time back in a long time. Again, like, some of the names were there through various events. And I wish I would have actually had a picture of this to point this out, because I didn't say anything about Tekken, but second place was this guy Omen. Top 3 for Tekken was, hold on, I can pull this up because I have this right here. Bam! You have Eric, you had Oath, Oath, and Unknown. Oath is a really familiar name. Like, I feel like he goes to, like, a decent amount of the Atlanta stuff. And I did look and see he's from the Carolinas, I believe. South Carolina, I believe. No. That's somebody else. He's from Augusta, but he travels to the Carolinas. That's what it is. But, again, getting off my topic. The point is, there have been people who've been around from Augusta off and on throughout the years. But the Augusta guard break is the first time that they've come together and pulled off a large-scale tournament since 2012. Somebody's going to pull up and tell me I have the wrong year, but you get the point. It's been a while. But it was nice to see them back in all their glory, having a good time chilling, putting on a good show, just coming back to the Georgia community. I think that's the last picture. Yeah, that's the last picture. Yeah, okay. That's it. That was my trip over to... I didn't have this set up right. Get out of here. That was my trip over to Augusta for the Augusta Guard break. Throw up some links in the description. I almost said Discord. Throw up some links in the description for the tournament VODs. If I can find it, I'll try to see if I can put a link to their photo gallery. I'm assuming it's on their Facebook page. Because before you leave, one of the things I thought that was really cool, along with their deep staff that they had organizing the tournament, running the stream, they actually had either 2 or 3. I want to say they might have had 2, and the R&R Barn Grill had 1, but there were 3 dedicated people going around taking pictures the entire event. And I think that's pretty cool for just like, content creation, if you will, but like building up a portfolio just to have different things, records of the event, being able to make different promotions, flyers, so on and so forth, just different things to add to the event. It's something that some groups do, some groups don't. But again, they were like doing a lot to make everything as big, as put it on a grand scale as they can, and leave themselves a lot of rooms to grow, a lot of things to build off of for the future. And from what I understand, this is going to be a bi-monthly event. From what I heard, I don't know if I'm supposed to just throw that out there, but I'm saying that so anybody who sounds really interested in this, people in the Augusta area, people anywhere that are willing to just travel to Augusta, know that this is coming back from what I understand, and just to be on the lookout for it. I'm gonna be on the lookout for it, and I'll try to make sure you know. But that's for later on down the road. For now, we got to be up out of here. Thanks for the time. I ain't hitting you with the YouTube classic right there. We don't do that. But have a good time. Thanks for this. What is this? 48 minutes? Yeah, thanks for your 48 minutes. Until next time, be easy, yo.